Good morning. I have news. Good news, even. So, turn that down. I have had a poor working memory for a very long time. Pretty much my entire life. And it's a little frustrating because there are things that I remember very, very well. Extremely well. Almost too well. Jingles from commercials when I was 8 years old. Still banging around up there, even though I'm 40 years old now. Heard them a few times. They're there forever. But things, there are certain things, and it seems to apply to working memory, which is kind of like a short-term memory. If I rattled off a few things real quickly, they would just be gone. And I have relied very heavily on paper for keeping track of things I need to keep track of. So the little tiny paper notebooks that I make, I've got dozens and dozens of those. Anytime I get a sheet of paper, I just start turning it into one of those little pocket notebooks. It's called Pocket Mod. It's actually really useful. But recently I was reminded that I was offered the opportunity to do a sliding puzzle, and I could not do it. And I said, "Oh, I don't do those. I'm not good at those." And that is from experience. I have long memories actually of having sliding puzzles. It was like a MC Escher sliding puzzle when I was a kid, and I could not make heads or tails of it. I could not make any sense of it. I would just move stuff around. And I was talking to my wife about this, and she was like, "How did you do Zelda games then?" I was like, I pretty much just mess around with them until something happens and it works. So, like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just pressing A until I win. But I thought about it, and I was like, as I was saying this is not something that I do. Might be a little better. As I was telling her this, I was like, that's kind of a dumb way to handle this, like a dumb way to think about this. We've got all the collected knowledge of the world in my hand, and I'm not, and just like look up how to cheat at sliding puzzles. So I did. I looked it up, and I was like, oh, well, this looks like a pretty solid algorithm, and then tried it out, and it worked. And that was it. Like, literally decades of, I don't know how to do sliding puzzles. I can't do those. I don't know how to do those. Resolved. So now I'm doing more sliding puzzles to kind of lock it in. And I'm still kind of geeking out about this. Like, oh, I don't do that. That's not something I'm good at. My brain just doesn't really click with that. It doesn't make any sense to me. And then you watch a 5-minute YouTube video, and you're like, oh, okay, I think I got it. So it got me thinking, like, what other things are possible? What other things do I just need a good algorithm for? And in this, my hair is being poofy, and I don't want it to be poofy. So what other things are there that I just think, oh, I don't do those, or, oh, my brain's bad at those. That's not the focus of my brain. My brain does this, and it doesn't do that. That I just need some kind of algorithm for. So one of those things, the most glaring, the most egregious offender is the working memory. That you can be talking to someone, and they can tell you their name, and then in 3 seconds it's gone. Or that you can look at the grocery list, go 1, 2, 3, cool, put it down, get 1, and you've lost 2 and 3. Like, gotta look at the list again. And then you look at 2, okay, 2, then 3, okay. You walk for 20 seconds, you pick up 2, and like, I don't remember 3. Let me look at the list again and see 3. There's other much worse ideas. But working memory was a problem, so I started looking up how to improve working memory. Ideas or exercises. It was exercises for improving working memory. And again, I was offered puzzles for how to do working memory, and I started kind of doing them, and some of the puzzles were more pattern based, and some of them were like rote memorization, and some of them I did really well with, and other ones not so much. And I was like, there's something here. There's a pattern. There's not a pattern, but there's some consistency forming, and I'm not sure what it is. So I looked more into it and looked more into memory ideas and structures and stuff like that. Structure is kind of tipping my hand here, but memorization techniques. And I had been introduced to some of these before, but I came back to it, and it was this idea of you memorize I don't know what you would call them, associations with every 2-digit number. So, 70 is a thing, and then you make that thing interact with 27, and now you've got 7027 memorized, because that interaction between this thing and that thing. And I didn't think I would be able to make it past the idea of memorizing, the rote memorization of just the numbers 0 to 100. Number 0, what is the number 62? Well, I don't know. I don't remember. You got to remember a thing for each of those numbers, and then the numbers become the thing, and that allows you to make these connections. But the video that I was watching on this technique was more about visualization, was more about adding mass to these ideas. So if I have my shopping list is eggs, bacon, milk, well, those are concepts. Those are things. I know what those things are. I can picture those things in my head. Eggs, bacon, milk. They're just floating around up there, but they're not connected, and they don't have any association. They have some weight, but not enough. They're just kind of concepts floating around in my head. So what happens was eggs, bacon, milk. I'm throwing an egg and it hits a pig, and then the pig runs and knocks over the milk. So I'm at the grocery store. I'm picturing myself mentally at the grocery store throwing eggs. I throw an egg, it hits a pig, the pig goes wee, 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 runs, and then crashes into, let's make it a giant display of milk. Just like a hilarious Coca-Cola style display of stacked milk into a big pyramid, and the pig just barrels right into it everywhere. Explosion of milk. Easy. So now when I go to Kroger, I see Kroger and I imagine me. I am in Kroger, and now I am in Kroger and I'm doing something. What am I doing? I'm throwing eggs. What am I throwing eggs at? A pig. What does a pig do? Runs. What does a pig run into? Milk. And that is simply creating that association. Makes it stick. Makes it connect. And gives it a narrative, like a story. It's a sequence of events that are occurring. These aren't just abstract concepts floating around in my head. Eggs mean a lot of things, but me getting eggs at Kroger is a very specific type of thing that needs an association, and bacon, it has a separate association, and those need to be connected. So merely doing that, and this was not something that I had intended to do. I was kind of thinking about these numbers, because I have been able to memorize numbers in the past. It was kind of difficult, but I can look at the numbers and get associations between them. Well, these are all even, or you take this number and then you skip one and you'll get to that number, and then you add those two together and you get the fourth number. Like, doing that kind of stuff was pretty easy if the numbers made sense, if the numbers had the association that I could, pluck out of them. But if I could make that association, then it was easy. Like, the numbers were connected. What do the numbers mean, Mason? So there was a potential for that, and I have done things like memorize credit card numbers before, just because it was easier than taking out the credit card. But then sometimes I'll The credit card will get busted or lost or mulched by the ATM machine, which happens sometimes. Um, and you get a new card number, and it's like, well, I don't really see the association here. So I found out it kind of got back to the number memorization, and then in doing that, I was back to the memorize a thing for every 2 digits. And I was, I'm looking at the list going, well, this is kind of working, and I would kind of really like to be able to memorize a number like that. So maybe I should just try this. And I started on it, started working on it, watched more videos about it, more suggestions, more recommendations, and then it clicked because those words were not arbitrarily chosen. The words are consonants that are associated with the number. They're actually kind of syllables, but whatever. Another consonant sounds in syllables. So the words are specifically selected to be 2-syllable words that have these sounds in the first syllable, a sound in the first syllable and a sound in the second syllable. And by associating those sounds, you can work backwards and make the number. So you don't memorize a number, you memorize, a sign. S is 0 and N is 2. So sign is easy. Sign has lots of things. Sign has lots of connections to it. I can interact with a sign. I can imagine what the sign looks like. I can imagine what the sign tastes like, feels like. I don't know, maybe you lick the sign. I'm just saying, I don't judge. But the point is that actually calls back to other memory techniques where you create more sensory around the experience, sensation around the memory. That's why olfactory, smell memories are very easy to recall. Like I can do taste memory. I don't know. I've asked some people, I haven't asked a lot of people. Maybe I can ask you, do you have a taste memory? Like cheesecake. I can taste cheesecake right now. I can put it in my mouth right now. And texture, flavor, I can almost feel the rush, the sugar rush. That's weird. But I've been able to do that. Sometimes my son will troll me and be like, Funyuns. I'm like, Funyuns. Stop. Eating some other food. And he's like, Funyuns. Ugh, I really don't like Funyuns. All right, so the idea is to add more sensory input. You have this concept, this germ of an idea that you're trying to memorize, and it's just floating out there in like this ether, this non-space inside your brain, and it doesn't have any connections to it. It doesn't have any node. It's just a node, a floating node, unconnected to the rest of the graph, and it has very little mass. But if you wrap it up in mass, if you wrap it up with an association, one of the strong recommendations is to associate these numbers with names, so that the name has an association with a person, and now you have this person in your head. One of mine is Dale Gribble. Dale Gribble, D-L, D is 1, L is 5. So Dale Gribble is 15. And Dale Gribble can do lots of stuff. And he's actually a pretty funny guy, and he can have silly things happen to him. He can get into wacky antics, which interact with him, maybe he's riding the pig and the pig crashes into the milk, any number of things. Maybe that has to happen on the 15th of the month. So what is Dale Gribble doing at this time, on this date? Well, I got to go to Kroger, and I got to get some eggs, and I got to get some bacon, and I got to get some milk. So creating these associations makes these like I have the opposite of aphantasia, so I can rotate the cow in my mind in 1080p while playing a guitar solo or something like that. That's absolutely not a problem. And actually, this was watching this memory video. this guy who was talking about this process, he said that he actually resolved his aphantasia after many years of, I don't want to say visualizing, but like conceptualizing these ideas by making these connections. He was able to get out, or able to actually begin to have images in his head. So that is the first instance of me hearing anyone resolving their aphantasia, which is, I think, pretty notable. I think that's very noteworthy. He just kind of glossed over it, so that might be a thing. But anyways, so these ideas, these things, these nodes that are floating around, abstractly disconnected, you need to connect them to things, and then you need to build mass around them, accretions around them. You need to give them weight. You need to associate them with things. The other thing is, I have this. It's like a little bit of number dyslexia. If I'm doing math in my head, like 1 out of 10 times, I'll swap numbers. And if I look at a number on a sheet of paper, maybe less since I'm looking at it on a sheet of paper, less often, I'll swap numbers. I'll confuse them, or I will, worse, I'll look at 13, and when I look at 13, I'll think 17. And I won't swap, I'll just change a number. I won't switch numbers. I'll just remove one number and put in a different one. And it happens sometimes. It's pretty annoying. But if I have this, if that number part of my brain is a little weak, and the people part of my brain is really big, or the artistic part of my brain, the visualization part of my brain, I can't imagine that mathematicians have this problem. Mathematicians are I said I get some number associations, and I can if I can build associations and connections between the numbers, it's very easy to remember how to walk your way through a credit card number. But I don't think mathematicians have that problem at all. In fact, they probably would be benefited by by turning people into numbers and then remembering the numbers and then recalling the numbers. But I'm doing quite the opposite. So, and in doing this, in turning this into people and scenarios and nodes that have connections and giving them mass, my brain, it just clicked. It just clicked. Now, I still have to actively, like, I can remember Dale Gribble, and Dale is not immediately associated with 15 just yet. I still have to go D-L, D1L is 5. So the recall time is not as fast, but that'll probably get better with practice. But the point is, it stays. And to test this, I memorized my 13-digit library card number in one go, and I can still recall it. It might take me 20 seconds to write it out, but I can write it out. Standing at the kiosk, I can sit there and go 1 0 0 0 and type it out, and that's what I wanted. And then in doing these like name associations, when someone says their name, well, immediately associate that with someone you know. Now that's a pretty popular process, recommendation for memorizing names. Connect it with someone you know, make them doing something memorable. The other element of it was to make it as fantastical and unique as possible, and to make sure that the things are interacting in kind of unique ways. I had this problem when I started turning them into people, and then August is 8, so 8 is Ivy. And Ivy doing stuff is not that great, unless you make it weird, which I probably should have. But I kind of turned it into Poison Ivy from the Batman cartoon. Poison Ivy, she's a person, she can be doing stuff. And then she was with another person. And then she was with other people. And then it was like, okay, Poison Ivy and which of those people is going to a place and doing a thing, having dinner in Tokyo again? Like, it needed to be different. It needed to be more unique than these two people are going and doing a thing. That's too normal, because it could be any two people, and I've got other people rolling around in there. Was she going with Jude Law, or was she going with Dale Gribble, or was she going with Tim the Toolman Taylor? Like, these are things that are a little bit too alike. So having alternative alternative things for them makes it a lot easier. There's direct associations, but there needs to be alternative associations. If I've got a person and they interact with another person and they interact with a third person and then they go to meet a fourth person, I'm probably going to get those confused. Might not be so with you, but you might be a mathematician. So I'm only sharing what is working shockingly well. The ability to memorize a grocery list, just that. So one of the other elements to this that I have to report is that I believe the paper became a crutch because I stopped carrying the notebook around and I stopped writing stuff in the notebook because I would make the effort to memorize it. And then once I made the effort to memorize it, it had a place. It went into a place and it was able to be recalled. And I didn't need the notebook. I still think I need notebook, whiteboard, OneNote for doing design work, where I'm holding a whole bunch of things. I'm not quite at the memory palace idea, which is actually a legitimate idea that has a lot of historical context around it, usually religious context, but it's for memorization. But the idea that I can make an association that when I get home, I get home on Monday, Garfield, because Garfield hates Mondays, Garfield's standing there with shelves on the door to get into the house, and what's on the top shelf? Well, when I need to remember to get those Spanish audio CDs, the Spanish audio CDs goes in the top shelf. And what do I have to do after that? I got to remember to pump up the bicycle tire. So the air pump goes on the next shelf. And that stuff is still there when I come back to it. I have to stop and think, this is Monday, and I'm going home. What is Garfield doing? What is on Garfield's shelf? I have to think that, but the stuff is still there. It stays there. And I'm able to recall it, and I'm able to put more stuff there, and I'm able to take the stuff down when I'm done with it and put different stuff up. So it's like the memories have a place for everything, and everything in its place. This is unbelievable. Like I said, I'm 40, and the more I think about this, the more I realize that I have had this problem for my entire life. And the idea that I just needed to think about things differently. I just needed to create different structures for my memories to fit into, to slot into. That the number memory, my memory speaks in people and situations and things and interactions, but it doesn't speak in numbers. Just having that idea, just exploring that idea for a little over a week, and now I've got this. And hopefully this can be of assistance to someone who isn't 40 years old, to someone who doesn't want to struggle with this for almost all of their life. So I might link some more information about this, but I think this is enough information to get started. Hope this is helpful.